Today, we're talking about memberships, more money, more problems. And we're going to talk about primarily how to wrap up your membership concerns at the end of the year and how to start them for next year. Maybe you're going to be raising your membership rates next year, or maybe you just have some general questions on it. But we are going to help you out with all of that today. And above all else, thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here. And with that being said, let me go on to the next slide. What are we talking about today? We are going to be talking about, like I said, updating your rates for the new year. Maybe it's that time where we're going to go ahead and update the membership rates, and you have some questions on how to do that. We'll answer those questions today. What if you have a bunch of duplicate memberships, or how can you prevent yourself from getting duplicate memberships in the future? We'll go ahead and let you know. What about punch fasts? What are they, and how do you best manage them? What about duplicate profiles? We'll show you how to handle that and the best tools to prevent that from coming up in the future. And lastly, we're going to show you that ways memberships can be used to assist with other needs today. So I am Andrew, and I will be your accounting guide, if you will, or your moderator today. And I will be handling all of your questions in the chat. Jen, as we like to call her, is our CFO of memberships, and she'll be the one presenting all of this awesome material for you today. Any questions that you have, please go ahead and put them in the chat. If they have nothing to do with memberships, that's okay. Go ahead and email our wonderful support team at support@recdesk.com, and I will put that email in the chat as well for everybody. That way you can also see where the chat is. We also have an amazing support center with step-by-step guides for just about anything you're looking for when it comes to RecDesk. With that being said, Jen, are you ready to take it away?
I am. Thank you, Andrew. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. So I wanted to have this discussion with everyone present so that we could go over some of the things that are best practices as your year ends and your memberships are coming to a close and you're preparing for your next year. So some things that you're going to want to go ahead and take care of are new rates. So I know a lot of you've got monthly or annual rates, and you're going to be changing them for 2024. But you have people on auto renew. All you need to do is click edit on the membership and scroll down and update the fees to what they need to be for 2024. Now, unfortunately, because today's the 13th, let's just go ahead and say that if you do this before the end of December, that whoever signs up now will be paying January rates. So if you need to wait a little bit, you may need to wait a little bit. But all you need to do is come in, update those fees, and then hit save. If anyone is on automatic renewal, the next time they renew, it's going to pull off of that new rate. Now, a big thing, though, I want to point out, please do not remove fees if you have people on auto renew. But if you really need to remove that fee out, please make sure that anyone who's assigned to that particular fee on auto renew, that you cancel the auto renew piece for their membership and you enroll them for the next term period into what will be the appropriate fee that they're transferred into. I can't think of a pretty good example right now. I know that some groups have just done things like combining veterans and senior fees together as an example. If you do something like that and they were originally broken out, just combine them so that when they auto-renew appropriately. And for those of you who have a termed membership, make sure that you change those date periods. I know those of you who use us for like kayak rentals or the canoe storage spots, I'm forgetting what they're called. Any of those types of areas. I know that you guys tend to have a true time period for your membership. So make sure you come and you update your definitive start and end date. Anyone who's on automatic renewal for those memberships, it will renew them for the new term dates. And keep in mind, that's also a good practice for those of you who have groups where your membership is based by a specific period, but you want to be able to use that auto renew piece because everyone's coming back again the next year. Just come in when you get to like mid to late December or whenever it is that people are no longer allowed to basically enroll until the start of the next year, and then change those term dates. And then that way, anyone who does sign up, they're going to be able to go from that date moving forward. Before I pop into punch passes, does anyone have any questions about regular memberships and good practices for updating them?
Thank you, Jen. At this time, we have no questions, but as a reminder, questions may pop up in your head while you're watching this, so please go ahead and post them in the chat box, and we'll be sure to get to them. Back to you, Jen.
Thank you. Now, punch passes. These are one of my favorite things for memberships because I've seen them used for a wide variety of things. Anything from those of you who have gyms who maybe for specific classes, they do need to purchase a punch pass. I usually pick on yoga and Zumba as my two examples. Sorry, everybody. But if the classes cost the same, but you need to count a punch every time they attend those group classes, then you want to sell them as a combined punch pass type of name. Please don't break out your punch passes and create multiples where it's just based off the number of punches somebody can purchase, though, because if you use self-check-in later and somebody happens to have multiple punch pass memberships, maybe they were running low and decided to buy more, it's going to pull from both places. And that may cause more work for your staff or for yourself in the long run. So try keeping them contained. Also, for those of you who require self-check-in at the door for your gyms, but you want to use punch passes for your group classes, we're going to go over in a little bit the different user roles and a user role called check-in only. That role could be utilized by your instructors so that they can sign in on either a cell phone or on an iPad type of device or tablet, something that they can use in their room or in their space, and take a punch away as people come in. They're not charging anyone. There is no extra step. It's just them doing that extra check-in for them attending the group fitness portion. Because what we want to see is your fees set up like this. Now, I have two examples here, and they're very different, mainly because pools, you guys are my other favorite example to use for this. You may have a seasonal membership or a number of punch type of membership. And both work out great because if I'm somebody going on vacation to that area, I don't need an annual membership. But if I want to go there frequently, buying a punch pass is going to be much more cost effective than me having to buy a daily pass every single day. In fact, I might be more inclined to go even if I don't use all of those punches. So if you sold something as a punch pass for something like at the pool, you can do the fee for the total amount of punches, how many people it includes, and the number of punches sold. So my second example here is it includes 4 people. So the way that one would work is if you have 4 people in a household, let's just say mom, dad, 2 kids, using that prime example there, they're going to have 20 punches as a household. And that means that if one time all 4 of them get to go, they have 16 punches left. If the next time mom goes with just one of the kids, then that means they have 14 punches left. It's going to be for the whole household to use and to share those punches instead of just 20 per person. So make sure when you're building your punches, you take that into consideration because this includes up to is going to save you in the long run, especially for anything that's an auto renew. Because if you have 2, let's just say a couple who's on an auto renewing membership, if they're paying the same price and using the same credit card on auto renew, you're probably going to get a failure on the second one because their credit card will view it as a secondary accidental swipe. So it's just not going to allow it to go through. You'll have to manually process it or just offset theirs a little bit. Now, I think after this, I'd like to get into some interesting ways you can use membership since I've got all my examples set up. But before I move on, does anyone else have any questions?
Hi, Jen. We do have a question on, do you have any recommendations if you're going to update your memberships? Is it better to do that on the last day in December or the first day in January? Or is there any preference there at all?
This is a personal preference, I tell a lot of groups, because if you still could have people signing up for the remainder of December, You need to just make sure that if you announce rates that you say these rates are, once they're live online is when they're live by. If you guys have to like publicly announce something and say, rates will be this much come January 1st, you guys may want to think about this, set an online enrollment begin date, and essentially say, you know what, we're going to be closed on New Year's itself. So no one's going to be in the office from the 29th or for the 30th to the 31st and the 1st. Like, let's just say you guys have a few days off, but you are required on the 1st to update that rate. Don't allow anyone to sign up online until the 1st. Give yourself a few days where people cannot sign up online for that membership, because that online enrollment date would help to make sure that no one signs up, let's just say on the 30th of December for a higher rate, and then they're angry with you because, well, that rate wasn't supposed to be released until January 1. So it's really one of those, think about how your community is. It is sometimes worth shutting off that online enrollment for a 3-day time period just to introduce new rates. Or some groups, I know that for you guys, it's more about how you announce it. If it's not as big a deal for that specific date, go ahead and post in the description that, starting the last 2 weeks of December, the new rate will be posted for the New Year's. Something along those lines. I think that is a fair statement, especially if you're in a monthly or an annual membership, since it will include a lot of 2024 anyways. So that's why I just have to throw it out there as, if you have something more unique than some of the circumstances that I've brought up, let us know and I can speak more specific to it, but that should cover most of the circumstances.
Great. Thank you, Jen. And with that, I think we're ready to move on to some of those other situations you were talking about.
Awesome. So some of you have asked us before how best to manage unique situations. Some of my favorite examples are right here: field sponsors, financial aid, and program discount reason. Now, field sponsor, I'm going to bring up because I like using sports for my example for this. We all know that there are certain times throughout the year that you need banners to be up on your baseball fields for a couple of months because there's somebody who's donating a certain dollar value to you all as an organization, and they just want their sign up there. I'm picking on baseball. It's just what I know best. But we've all been there. These type of field sponsorships are just nice because you can build the fees based on the level of, you can build the fees based on what level of sponsorship they'd like to have. And you can even use term dates. So if your sponsorship coverage is only for, 3 months of the term, then you can do that. If it's specific date periods, like if it's for the whole entirety of the season, then just make sure that on the membership itself, you use definitive start and end dates and you put those dates there. One of the reasons I really recommend this is because next season or next year, whenever the season hits again, you're going to want to be able to reach out to these sponsors. If somebody has been an active member in this sponsorship, it's a filterable field on our members tab as well as bulk emails, which allows you to easily reach out to those contacts to be able to seek more aid. Now, speaking of aid, I'm going to use financial aid or program discount reason. Both kind of are the same thing, just slightly different names. Many of you have asked us, how can I make it easier for members to be able to do things? Financial aid or, program discount reason. We even have members that we even have customers that use memberships so that due to the size and way they run something like a summer camp, they may want to be able to give the parents the ability to complete all the forms before registration begins. You can use a free membership to let parents sign up ahead of time to complete all of those documents before a registration period starts. We have some groups who will use those memberships for like an initiation fee for preschool. in order to make sure that they've paid whatever whatever fees are due at the very beginning, as well as filled out any specific forms. But for things like a financial aid discount or a program discount like coaches, when you create those memberships, even if you manage them 100% of the time in-house, when you go and you create a program, you're going to be able to, within the fees, have discounts created within them and say these memberships are required in order to receive that price. So if you have kids that are on financial aid, they always, the cost is just something that is eaten by the department, or there's financial aid that comes in from outside sources. Let them pay $0 at checkout, because then the parents can still sign up online. They can fill out the forms online. Everything becomes a much smoother process for the people that are in those circumstances. And it kind of gives you the opportunity to also see who those members are, track them a little bit easier. And if you want to gather specific information that may help you with, grants in the future, it's going to be able to give you one membership to be able to collect all of that data that you're looking for. Now, I think I went over the unique ways those memberships are going to help. Please keep in mind too, I forgot to bring this up earlier today, but if you are doing wrong button. Sorry, everyone. When you're making online availability schedules, you can also restrict by memberships. So that's another unique way that you can utilize that membership, is if you have a group, say for all of your coaches, they're the only people who can rent your baseball fields. This is how you can do that easy filter to make it so that they can have that access without having it be password protected and that password possibly being shared. Keep in mind, it's going to require their membership be active during the time they go to do it. So if you cancel or pause their membership or anything like that, they're going to stop having access to that online schedule and stop having access to program discounts as well, if that applies. I've seen that used from pools and tennis courts as well, when you guys do discounts on the programs if they're members of that each of those divisions. So keep in mind that each of these pieces are going to communicate with one another. Now, I think I'm doing pretty good on time. Do we have any questions right now?
Hey, Jen, when we get a chance, it can be now or it can be later on, whatever works best for you. Can you go over a little bit on how punch passes show up on a profile and how they are used to check somebody in? We have a lot of questions about those in the chat.
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to take advantage of this particular piece to show one other option, one other piece that I'd like to just bring up. Memberships are non-transferable. So the reason I bring that up is something I want you all to remember is we're going to remind you that during this time period, it's great to look for duplicate profiles, both duplicate profiles within the memberships themselves. Maybe somebody signed up twice by accident and they're overlapping terms, or duplicate member profiles on your members tab. And part of the reason I want to bring that up now is because that piece, we have a workflow. We can step-by-step guide, as well as an Excel sheet that would be able to assist with that to help you identify your duplicates. So if you need that, email us, because you may need to do this next process, which is the closest to transferring of memberships that I can explain. You would need to cancel them from the existing membership and then use the either quick actions or under memberships, the add new membership member. Choose the appropriate membership. Choose the appropriate fee. Now, if you're doing a transfer, we're quoting over here, or, there's a situation where somebody's already prepaid for something else, they got put in the wrong item. If they've already paid for the wrong item and it goes to the right general ledger code and finance isn't too worried, leave that invoice alone, leave that payment alone. Just lower this fee amount. If they've already prepaid completely and you can leave it alone, you can change that fee box to 0. You can also adjust the number of punches swipes remaining. We have had a few customers who have done that combining of Punch Pass memberships lately, which has been amazing to see. But this is something to bring up. If for any reason you're gifting somebody a certain number of passes, you can do this workflow as well and change that box and change the number of punches. For those of you who just need to change term dates, keep in mind you just change the start date to whatever their real start date was, and it should update the term date. It'll update the end date as well. Then hit Add New Member and search and look for the first person you want to attach. This is usually like one of the parents of the house when it has to do with children, just so that then that's the primary member, the adults versus the child. Then hit Add New Member when it's a family membership or more than one person that can be included, and add all of the other household members. If this membership had the ability to, or if your system allows for stored payments, when you are doing auto renew on memberships, you will have the ability to do enroll in auto pay. And if they have a stored credit card, debit card, or if you have the ability to do ACH as well, it will show up here in this dropdown. Now, if you don't have this ability or they do not have a stored credit card, please keep in mind you can do the send installment due or manage manually. Keep in mind, manage manually means it does not send to the customer. That is something you are controlling in-house. And you do need to save and check out per household. I'm going to skip paying that and show you all the check-in process. So right now, this is my check-in screen. I have filtered to make sure I do have a membership before checking in. I'm paused. Why am I paused?
You may be paused from this morning, Jen, when we were showing that in the PowerUp.
I deserve this. Sorry, everybody. Oh, I have to resume it today. I'm like, why didn't that fix it? Silly me was showing an example in the future. I'm so sorry, everybody. Okay, so now when I go to check in, this screen is popping up because I have multiple memberships, including multiple punch passes. And I actually really like this example because I know I'm in the same punch pass twice. So what it's going to do, see how when I complete, now I have 9 punches remaining in that membership, but I still have my 15 for the other. That's why it's important. If somebody goes to purchase more punches and they still have a few remaining, we're going to eat out of that first membership first and then go for the next punches. Now that secondary screen will always pop up when you are in attended check-in. So for those of you who want to lock down a screen and have members choose whether they're there for a punch pass reason or not, this is when it's good to think about having a admin user role called check-in only. It'll allow you to make it so that the only screen that the public will see is this inner part. They will not be able to click on anything, see anybody's profile, go any further. It just kind of locks them down in this check-in process, which is exactly what you want. We do have self-check-in. I want to be clear with self-check-in. There's one big thing you should know. They cannot unselect their punch passes. They are automatically checked into it. So unless that's what your intention is, please uncheck your punch passes here because it will pull them and it will pull from all of the punch pass memberships that you have checked off. That's why I encourage, if you're using a punch pass for secondary classes like a group class, yoga, Zumba examples, that you don't punch the pass here during the initial I'm in the building, but rather have the instructors give them that self check-in or the check-in only user role so that they can do this check-in screen. And they can choose just that punch pass so that when they're checking somebody in and somebody comes into the group class, it's taking that punch away. And for security reasons, this is also locked down, and I typed the wrong password.
It's a great example of how secure it is, Jen. Thank you.
We do keep that secure for that reason, by the way. We don't want people, if you're using self-check-in mode with a real profile, especially a director profile, to figure out how to get out of the self-check-in screen and potentially mess with a lot of your money. All right. And since that went over, do we have any other questions about this check-in piece before I get more into the financial aspect of things that are really good habits for you when you're using memberships, especially an auto renew piece?
Thanks, Jen. No questions for you at the moment. There's a couple I'm going to answer in the chat here, but if you want to move on to that financial piece, that sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, the money tab is going to be one of the most important tabs for you to pay attention to with your memberships, especially if you're not collecting payments in full. Now, here's some of the things to keep in mind. Under the money tab and payment plan templates, you do need to have a payment plan template created in order for auto renew to occur. Now, my auto renew that I have here is set up as auto renew. It's called it's set up to be daily 1. Now, what this just means is the day that my membership renews, I'm paying it in full, one payment. For those of you who break it out, if it's an annual membership, make sure you title your payment plan accordingly. Choose your monthly. I don't recommend this based on I'm sorry, I don't recommend doing the first day of the month, and I'll explain why. Based on the invoice renewal date is your safest option. The reason this is your safest option is because if I do a membership today, the 13th is going to be the day that payments will come out. Now, if you as an organization have finance department that says, well, we need it to be on the 1st, then you guys will have to decide which way you want to go when it comes to prorating. And that could be like a gift them a certain time period, or there's no prorating, they pay, you know, if it's $35 a month, if they're signing up on the 28th of the month, then they're paying $35 that month. Or they can pay $35 and start when the 1st of the next month starts. But keeping it so that the membership end dates end on the last day of the month will make it so that all the members will renew on the 1st. So if you have online enrollments, you'll have to edit those memberships as they come in, but make sure you all speak as a team to decide whether you want to have it pull out on the certain day of the month. The reason that this will work great for other circumstances. If you have a payment plan for something like daycare invoices that's through programs, or your summer camp invoices that you want to put on payment plans. Day of the month will work out great for that, or even this other pattern that we have. But I give this warning because if I renew on the 13th, it would not pull money until January 1st. And I don't think that's what a lot of you are looking for, as it almost looks like people are getting a half month free just because of the oddity of it. But the number of payments is 12 because it's an annual, but I'm letting people pay monthly for it. So this is step 1 for being able to use that auto renew feature. Remember, only authorized.net and Clover customers have the ability to store credit cards and or ACH. That ACH piece is something you all would have to do extra. So if you have and you've let us know, then it's been connected. For those of you who use Authorize or Clover, there the other tab that you should pay attention to, we're not going to look on my training site because I have no real payments, even though we're going to go over here to my demo site that has all fake payments. There are two tabs here I want you to pay attention to: ACH returns and auto pay history. Now, ACH returns, I'm not 100% certain I'll have anything to show as a great example here, just because there's been no real. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. These are for your authorized checking accounts members. So if you're using this piece, you'll want to come here if things are not being processed, because if it did not clear, if it had failed, it would have stated that it had failed and it would have given some failure reason. Now, we don't always know the reason because ACH is a little bit of a slower to clear process, but it's going to give you more of an idea as to what happened right here. Now, auto pay history is a very big deal when it comes to those of you using credit cards. Change your date period. Maybe check this once a month, because you don't necessarily need to look at the successful. You're really focused on your fails. And we're going to give you reasons for those failures. And they're pretty self-explanatory. But just know, outside of things like credit card has expired, if you see, go back a little bit further and see if I can get some other. Okay, we don't have some, I apologize, I'm missing some pretty good examples here, but as you can see, we give you a reason why. Sometimes you're going to see that the reason that failure is it's been declined. If it's the first of the month and that person's card is declined and you guys call them and they say, can you run it manually, and it works, ask them, say, hey, do you happen to have a large number of bills that get pulled on the first of the month? Because that could be a reason that it's failing, is because their bank's just saying there's too much going on. We need to put a pause on this. And they're not going to allow that small charge because the bigger charges are more important. So if that's the case, think about that, because if the customer says, well, yeah, that does happen. Sometimes I end up really low on that day, like the way that my employer's deposit works, changing them to like the third or the fourth, as silly as it sounds, may guarantee that funds always go through. It's just keeping a few days after to help them to ensure that it comes out of their account correctly. Now, if you see that the stored payment has been deleted, there's going to be two reasons for this. Either A, somebody called that department and said, hey, I would like this credit card deleted because I have a new one I want to use. And what should have happened is when the staff deleted the old stored payment and added in the new one, they should have updated auto pays and payment plans to be the new stored card. The system does not automatically know to do that. You need to tell it which card to charge. So anytime you make a change like that, just know you need to go and update that membership, click on that edit button, and change which credit card is allocated to it. And if there is an open payment plan that payments are still being made on, that you do the same thing within that payment plan. Otherwise, they're pretty self-explanatory items that you're going to see. And also keep in mind, when it comes to membership reporting, under the reports tab, we do have two. The membership list is going to give you the people, memberships by period. If you need a certain time frame, just contact us. If you need one that doesn't show, we can help pull that for you. This is going to give you a general idea as to how many people belong to your memberships and a breakdown as to which memberships that you had throughout the course of the year. If you're just looking for simpler numbers, like how many people signed up at all for memberships, use your activity counts. If you need specific days, again, just let us know and we can get that information, including demographic, online versus in person for you. Now, are there any other questions I can help with?
Jen, would you mind showing us how to apply a payment plan to an invoice for a membership? Just a example of that would be great.
So I'm going to skip to the invoice part just because the whole process of getting here, I know I showed earlier. Once you get to the invoice, And remember, instead of hitting the make a payment when you're going through checkout, there's a little verbiage underneath. It says, just take me back to the invoice. Click on that. It'll take you right here. And you can go actions, create payment plan. Now, this way does allow you to do more of a customized payment plan, or you can use one of your templates. All you're doing here, if you're doing it specific, is you're just making it so this unique circumstance you can change. So if you want the plan start date to be a certain day, you can choose that. Same options as before with that auto renew, the enroll and auto pay, which only works if they have a stored payment method, send installment due email, or manage manually. And then how many payments you're looking for them to make. So I'm just going to use the example of 5. And it'll break it down to $40 a day instead. Now, keep in mind, payment plans are great because for members that have open invoices, they are only going to be able to pay in full, or if you have applied a payment plan, one of those payment plan payments. And the due date is the important thing to pay attention to, because the reason for this payment plan is every time a payment is made, I'm just going to use my household credit to make this quicker. Now, when I go back to the invoice, it's moved out to a further due date. And the reason I point this out is this invoice on my invoice list should show as open, never overdue. Once it's reached overdue, it means payment has not been made, and there should be secondary course of actions for your organization. Now, each reason is going to be different. None of these are going to be good examples. But, things like if somebody canceled the membership and there's still fees left, we're going to pick on this since there was a partial payment made. You can go ahead and just mark that invoice as closed. It's going to stop showing up on your overdue list because you're no longer seeking payments. But if you ever have questions about it in the future, or if you have a lost revenue type of report you prefer doing at the end of the year, then you can always filter this to your closed invoices and be able to see how much money you should have been able to collect. Oops. Just going to change that back to open. Do we have any other questions?
Not at this time, Jen.
I think I just got the better flow at the 3 o'clock time than the 10 that we did better timing.
Yes, I guess so. So if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and post them in the chat, and we would be happy to get to them. We just had a question come in to clarify. A closed invoice means that no funds were collected. Jen, do you want to take that one?
No, a closed invoice does not mean no funds were collected. Closed just means you're stopping, you are no longer seeking a payment for it. So this terrible example was something I made back in 2022, probably for a PowerUp. Sorry, everybody, that's how long some things live in our system for. This is something that I'm obviously not getting a payment for, so I can mark it as closed. I know some departments do this, especially for reservations. It's a very common thing with reservations because they do a lost revenue report at the end of the year. I have no idea how it plays a role in finance because honestly, I've run the reports. I've been able to help people figure out the numbers. What finance people do with it from there, I'm not 100% sure. Just going to be honest.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Another question for you. Do you have any best practices if you only want to raise rates for new memberships, but leave your current memberships at the same rates? Does that make sense to you?
It does. And this is where you're going to get into a 2-part piece. If you have like 1 or 2 fees, you're in great shape, because then all you would need to do is uncheck the show on portal box for your existing fees. And then where you have new space, go ahead and add the new rate. And make that one visible on the portal. Because if the old people are being renewed at the same rate, this leaves that rate there. We allocate it to this fee. We know that that's how much they're going to pay. And it's mainly based on the renewal rate. If your existing member's renewal rate is going to remain the same as it was before, that's the best practice.
Great. Thank you, Jen. We got a couple more questions coming in. So for punch passes, they can typically purchase multiple punch passes. Is that correct? Like 2 memberships of 15 or so punch passes?
Yes. So, I keep using the joke of yoga, but and Zumba as my punch pass examples. But like, if you're even a pool, if you're a pool and I'm a family of 4, and I know I'm going to be in your area for a month and only a month, I might purchase 2 or 3 of those 20 passes just because I know that we'll use them all, but it's cheaper in the long run than signing up for the annual because I'm only there for 1 month. I'm picking on this particular example, by the way, if that's not the case for you guys, I totally get it. I just like using that because more often than not, people will purchase more punches if the punches worked really well for them, and it works this way. They're going to be more frustrated, though, if you don't heed my advice and you say create 1 membership for 10 punches, 1 membership for 20, and then 1 for like 40. Because if I have a 10 punch membership and I like it and I go and purchase the 40, because the 40 is technically a different membership, that 40 will also take a punch every time I'm still checking in, unless it's manually controlled by your staff. So that's the big thing, is just keep your punch passes into 1 per department or whatever resource it's being used for, so that people don't accidentally use punch passes they should not have. And keep in mind, for that self check-in screen, if you don't have the punch pass checked off, it's not going to take a punch. So if you have punch passes for your pool and for your tennis court, if your pool is set up to have the pool punches taken out, it's not going to touch tennis. And I, because there's a few groups who do that, and it sounds way more complicated than it actually is, but it does work, I promise.
Thank you, Jen. Another question for you on punch passes. What would you say is the best way to limit punch passes on a check-in screen? Can you show me if I can just select maybe 1 specific punch pass if I have multiple, or what would be the best practices for that?
So if you're using the self check-in screen, and we're going to pretend these are all different types of, this punch pass is the only punch pass that daycare uses. So this is the only punch pass that I'm checking off to be allowed to punch in. If somebody has a punch pass that's for a different department, like they're part of the corporate, they're not going to be able to check in.
Thank you, Jen. And then
I should say check in or check out, but we're sticking with that phrase because everyone sees the checkout tab there.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, looking at the other questions here, could you take a second and explain a little bit about how a membership check-in differs from a program check-in?
So memberships are technically drop-ins, and drop-ins are great too. Let's see if I have one set up. Yes, I do. Okay, great. I have my program examples here. So drop-ins are technically a little different, and I'm just going to clarify why I call them drop-ins versus check-ins. Is punch passes are great for a situation where, you don't want to have your staff charge somebody at checkout, or there was a charge. If they're just saying they're there for an event and there's no charge, or your staff is allowed to collect funds, using the drop-in piece allows them to use the check-in. Now, just clicking that word check-in says they're there for that program. So it's great for, like, let's just call it the attendance check-in version of the program, because if you have to pre-register to be able to go there, it's going to make it so that that's required. But if I'm paying for like a yoga class when I get there, then you can do that. You can charge them. But that means that your staff is going to need to check the person in to that program, choose the correct fee, and then take the payment before continuing to check the next person in. So that's why I kind of teach the punch pass version is if it's a very common need, punch passes will make that process so much faster because they can sign up for that on their own. Drop-ins are better if you need it to be a much more controlled environment, or you're just needing to know who actually attended day of and they required pre-registration.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. We do have a question about finding duplicate accounts in here, and just want to point out to everybody that if you email us at support@recdesk.com, we do have a tool that can help you with that. It is still using Excel, but there is a determined workbook that we can give you to kind of help you out with that. So please give us an email at support@recdesk.com, and we'll be happy to give you the link to that tool, as we like to call it. Jen, would you mind showing us the difference between a paused membership and a suspended person?
Yes. Andrew laughs because I love the difference between these two, but I'm going to do one better. I'm going to show pause on a membership first. I'm picking on my punch pass today just because it's here. For those of you with pools, you've heard me say this. If you had equipment break, immediately pause that membership because you don't know how long you're going to be closed for. We all know that that's sometimes how it works. This pausing is also great for holiday closures. So for those of you who are closing, let's just say from Christmas to New Year's, we're using that as an example. If you're closing for that entire time period, you can pause all the memberships for that time period. Oops. And see how down here it says that I can add the number of days to the end of the membership. So I can essentially turn this feature on, have that week off, come back in, and it automatically gives people that week back at the end of their membership term. So if their membership ended February 1st, now it would end on February 8th. You can also pause individual memberships. So let's just say something, I mean, COVID was the best example for like pausing a household, but let's just say this was an individual person or the household needs to be paused for a few months. Something's going on. They need to travel. Somebody is very ill in the household and no one can participate in these type of group activities anymore for a period of time. You can pause the membership. Now, if there's a specific date of return, think individuals who, break something in your gym. If they have a note from the doctor saying they cannot go to the gym for the next 6 weeks, you can preemptively put the 6-week date in here and then say you guys have to come back with another doctor's note if it's going to be longer. Or if you want to leave it just paused until you resume it, you can. Please put notes in when you're pausing, though, because your fellow staff members will look to that reason in case somebody calls or questions, hey, why am I paused in the first place? They're going to be able to read that. Now, the reason I have a little too much fun with the other aspect that Andrew's talking about is suspending a profile. Suspending a profile is better when they are naughty. This does not have to be because they were naughty with memberships. This could be because they had a child injure an instructor or do something inappropriate where the family needs to take a timeout, or the individual needs to take a timeout from being allowed in your facility due to consequences of their actions. Edit their profile and then scroll down and click on the suspend member, not archive. Just to clarify, archive is better if you have, say you're a military town and somebody has been, they're being shipped now to a completely different station and they're no longer going to live there. You can archive that member, and that way you don't accidentally keep reaching out to them thinking they're still locals and in the neighborhood. Suspending members will make it so they can't sign up for anything. They can't check in. They can't sign up for a program, a membership. They can't rent a facility. All they can do is sign up, go online, and pay their invoices. Now, one thing I like to remind groups is, I accidentally archived. One thing I like to remind groups when I do go over some of this process is if it's just one person in the household who deserves to be on timeout, only suspend that one person. If it's the whole household because they are naughty and have not paid over, they're well over $1,000, it's past the point where you guys are, they're still signing up for things when they're not paying for previous events. You all have been there. Suspend each person in the household. You do have to do it one by one, and I apologize for that, but that's why we have that difference, is so that you can treat them all as individuals instead of a group at, let's just say punishing hall. And that would prevent anybody in the house from doing any activity outside of paying an invoice.
Great.
And as you saw, it was super easy to just click unsuspend when they're out of timeout.
And they're back on your good side.
Could say out of the box and go with a hockey phrase, but
There we go. Penalty box. Thank you, Jen. Couple of follow-up questions on that. Let's say they are on an auto-pay membership and they are suspended. Will that automatically deduct a payment from their account if they have that set up, or how does that work while they're suspended?
Payments don't stop because they're on suspension. So do keep that in mind, that if they are suspended and you don't want to continue to charge them, that you may want to think. Now, if they're really, really overdue for their membership payments, it may be smart just to cancel it or pause that membership itself too. Again, you have more records of what was going on. But personally, if somebody is really overdue for a membership, I recommend canceling them from it, because if they do try to come in and finalize the payment, you guys can do that process I showed earlier of the quick actions and just changing that membership term date. So change the end date. If they just paid now, finally, after however long, and the reality is that their membership ends mid-February from before, you can do that. You can come in here and say, all right, we got the payment. We're still going to open that other invoice that we had closed. You can reopen the invoice by clicking the actions, and it says open invoice, reopen invoice. So you just do that, make the payment, and then put them back in for what would be the remaining term period.
Thank you, Jen. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, some people like pulling from the canceled list and hitting renew next to it. I don't like that, because I like you to do it more manually instead.
Yeah. Speaking of manual and maybe potentially doing things en masse, is there a way to pause an entire membership for everybody who has that membership? And are there any recommendations you would give along with that?
Yes. On the membership screen itself, you can hit pause membership. It'll tell you how many active members you have, the date you want to pause, and if you want to have the date set for resume. The big thing I want to make clear here is you should not set the pause date in the past far enough that it's going to touch people whose memberships have already expired. Because if you do that and then you go to add dates, so let's just say, bring this back, and it goes to add 13 days. Anybody's membership who's expired and maybe even auto-renewed will reopen, because you're telling us that if their membership was active during this time period, to give them 13 more days. So it could potentially reopen memberships, and reopen memberships in a way where they've been on auto renew, so they might get charged twice in the same month before you even realize. So backdating is just something that I really recommend, that if you do it with caution. Maybe give us a call first so we can always help walk you through. If you look at your list of membership members, or even on your memberships members tab itself, Sometimes just going, hey, before I do this, let me see who had this named program between this time period. You can check and, do a quick comparison, see who expired, things like that. Make yourself feel more comfortable if you have very large memberships. If you don't and they're small, you don't really need to worry about it. If it's 1 or 2 people, that's manageable for you. But for those of you with very large memberships, backdating can be dangerous because it will touch expired memberships.
Thank you, Jen. That is a very, very important lesson there on the backdating. So I'm glad we had a chance to explain that to everybody. All right, we have about maybe time left for one other question at this point, if anybody has one related to memberships here. I know we have received several questions for different topics, such as reservations and that. If you could please direct those to the support@recdesk.com email. We would be happy to help you out individually at that point. If no, Jen, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, do you want me to use this time to show them resources?
Yes, please.
Keep in mind that green resource button over on the right-hand side. I try really hard to get the PowerUp videos same day, but unfortunately, sometimes with churning for the videos, they don't go up until the next morning. So either by late this afternoon or early tomorrow morning, under the PowerUp videos, you will see this listed here. If you're interested in other videos that we don't have shortcutted here, please click on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel does have a lot of our really old PowerUps and some other helpful videos as well. Under helpful workflows, you're going to have some other options. Keep in mind, none of these are going to cost you anything. You just have to click on them to watch them. We also have training for your front-end users versus your builders. This is a little bit different. This builders are for people who are going to build the programs, memberships. The rate setters is a good way to think of that one. And we have content management training videos as well. Also, for those of you who are ever curious, down at the bottom, we have our shortcut to our latest release notes. Keep in mind, we tend to have a lot of releases, even if they're small ones or just small little bug fixes. So keep your eye on that and see if there's something that came out that maybe you were thinking about that you'd like for the system, but we weren't aware of, and we can discuss how it can help you.
Great, thank you, Jen. And as a follow-up for that, if you submitted an enhancement request or a bug fix and that does come to fruition, you would be notified. So you don't always have to go in there and look for those bug releases and those news features. If there is one you're waiting on that you've submitted, you will be notified, but that is a great resource to check out the other great things that our developers are working on. And with that being said, it is 4 o'clock. At least Eastern time. So we would like to thank everybody who came today and joined us for this presentation. Any other questions that are still out there, please go ahead and reach out to the wonderful support team at support@recdesk.com, and we'll be happy to help you out with those questions there. Jen, anything else to add?
No, thank you everyone for coming, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Yes, have a great rest of your Wednesday. Happy holidays, yes.